for many Indians, the monsoon once meant childhood memories. Paper floats floating in rainwater, hot cups of tea, crispy pakoras, and the hope of an unexpected school holiday. But the arrival of the monsoon brings something very different, concern. At the center of that concern is a weather phenomenon called El-Nino. Now, El-Nino may sound like a distant scientific term, but its impact is felt much closer home, right in our kitchens, our electricity bills, and our monthly household budget. So what exactly is El-Nino? It is a climate pattern that develops when the waters of the Central and Eastern Pacific Ocean become warmer than normal. These warmer ocean temperatures disrupt global weather systems, including the Indian monsoon. Historically, El Nino has been associated with weaker and delayed monsoon rains in India. This year, weather agencies around the world are warning that El Nino conditions are strengthening. At the same time, India is already facing rainfall deficits in several regions and an intense heat wave. The biggest impact is likely to be on food prices. A weak monsoon affects agricultural production because nearly half of India's farmland still depends on rainfall. When rains are delayed or insufficient, farmers struggle to sow crops on time, yields decline, and the supply of food becomes tighter. The result, high prices for everyday essentials. Vegetables such as tomatoes, onions, chilies, and cabbages are already becoming more expensive. Fruits, edible oils, pulses, and other food items could also see prices increase in coming months. But food is only one concern. As temperatures rise during El Nino years, electricity demands also increases. More households use fan, coolers and air conditioners for longer periods, pushing up power consumption and electricity costs. Farmers, meanwhile, are forced to pump more groundwater to compensate for poor rainfall, increasing the demand on electricity, diesel. Lower farm incomes can reduce spending in rural areas, affecting businesses that depend on rural demand. Slower economic activity can eventually influence jobs, wages, and overall consumer spending. Even the Reserve Bank of India is keeping a close watch. Rising food prices and weather-related disruptions could push inflation higher, affecting borrowing costs and economic growth. The good news is that India is better prepared than it was a decade ago. Irrigation coverage has expanded, reservoir levels remain relatively healthy, and agricultural infrastructure has improved. But there are high chances as El Nino strengthens, becomes stronger, the purses will be affected. I'm being joined at this point by Sunil Dhaya, who's a founder and lead advisor, Enviro Catalyst. Thank you very much. Good evening. Mr. Sunil Dhaya, break this down for us. What is India really looking at? You know, it's a given. We are already at deficit monsoon, El Nino. This is a super El Nino, a monster El Nino. There are different terms which are being used. Essentially, this is the strongest El Nino that has been formed since the time we have seen El Ninos, at least the last 4 El Ninos, if you look at it. What does this mean? What is India really looking at?
Thanks, Neha. I think you have really beautifully summarized what El Nino is and how does that impact our household budget, not just from the food produces, but also from the electricity price. And what it will also do is not just impact it during these next couple of months. The impact lasts a bit longer because the farm yield, if it is lower, the impacts are felt beyond these months, beyond three months, and maybe for about a year. Similarly, the reservoir levels, which were healthy because last year we had good amount of rain starting early in May, and the reservoirs were all full. Now those reservoirs are getting empty. The monsoon is delayed. We have a deficit, and these reservoirs will not be replenished the way they were last year. What that means is that the hydro power generation capacity for the remaining year would be lower than anticipated. And looking at the kind of heat we have faced, one very anecdotal evidence which we can see through the data is last year, May, 2025 May, the power demand was obviously during the summer months it goes high, but there is a concept called whenever the power demand goes high, the regulatory authorities cap the price of electricity at 10 rupees. And that price capped was seen between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the night. We had seen in May 2025 that the price was at the ceiling of 10 rupees. This May, that ceiling starts at 8 p.m., which means that the power demand is higher. The cost of power, which is procured by these discoms, is higher, and these costs will reflect in our electricity bills. And as I mentioned, it's not just right now, it will also be seen in the months to come. That means that the food prices will be higher. The oil produces in India, in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia, because there will be lower produce, these prices will be higher. The electricity prices will be higher. So we are looking at a very, very difficult time, and especially from the electricity perspective, because our electricity demand is growing very, very
I
rapidly,
mean, you
and the
have people
resources
who
which
are going and sleeping by the beach because there are such power cuts in Mumbai, in Maharashtra. You have people who have actually gone and, there are visuals that have come in over the period of time of how people have gone and slept at the beaches because it's been so hot
and
and there are power cuts.
that's where I think even the numbers which we see, even the intensity of the problem which we are seeing from a power deficit situation, these numbers are not the true representative of the power deficit we are looking at. The states like Uttar Pradesh, states like Maharashtra have started showing huge power cuts, and that forces people to go and sleep on the in the parks, on the beaches, and all those things. But these numbers don't really get reflected in our power deficit situation. So the demand of power is way higher than the numbers we see, and because there are multiple ways of justifying that demand. If an area is not supplied power, sometimes it can also be shown as that area didn't even need the power and it's going through power cut. So we have started seeing it. The monsoon is coming. It has entered in India. The situation will improve a little, but it will be a really big nightmare for the Indian consumers, Indian households, and even the power sector in terms of how do we manage this growing demand. Obviously, we can't do anything for this El Nino right now. But one of the factors which we are seeing is responsible for such extreme weather conditions is climate change, which fuels these already existing natural phenomena.
Why would
And
you say that? Why would you say that? And I'm asking you this question because there have been El Ninos in the past as well. And starting from the period when climate change really wasn't something that everybody discussed about, if you look at the history of it. So is El Nino the byproduct of climate change, or is the worsening El Nino the result of climate change? What is
so
it?
it's a chicken and egg situation. So both contribute to each. So now, whether the climate change is fueling the El Nino or at least the worsening situation, the answer is definitely yes, because El Nino might bring these kind of conditions once in a while. And as you mentioned that this has been one of the strongest El Ninos out of 4 or 5 which we have seen. But even despite the El Nino, the kind of temperatures we are facing, the rising temperatures we are facing every year, year by year, that increases our power demand. That affects our crop yield. That affects the way we live and breathe. And that's why whatever is happening, the kind of fossil fuel emissions or consumption we are doing, and the emissions which are increasing because of that, that definitely fuels the worsening situation. And that is why I say that there is very little which we can do, at least for this El Nino. But what we can do is, even despite the El Nino, next year we might not have El Nino
Right.
impacting us, but the temperatures are still rising. The urbanization, the way it is happening, is still trapping that heat and making cities hotter. The green cover is being lost, and all that will ultimately lead to whatever is happening right now at a bigger scale, that happening over a long time horizon, wherein the power demands will keep
Right.
going up, the yield keeps going down, and that is
Right.
why the only chance in the longer term we have is to kind of arrest that change and do our bit in
Right.
controlling it.
Right. Thank you very much, Sunil Dhaya, for joining us. Thank you for breaking this down for us.